From Bye Bye Birdie to the Flintstones and, of course, co-starring with Elvis in Viva Las Vegas, Ann-Margret has had an incredibly steady career in Hollywood, spanning 6 decades.
Ann-Margret Olsen was born in 1941 in Valsjöbyn, a small, cold village in Sweden surrounded by forests and snow. Her family was poor and life was hard. Her father worked long hours at a lumber mill for just a few coins each day. There was no electricity, no running water, and during winter, temperatures dropped so low that they had to melt snow for drinking water. But even as a little girl, Ann-Margret dreamed of a bigger life. Her mother used to tell her, "You will shine one day." When Ann-Margret was 6, her father moved to the United States to find work, and 2 years later, he sent for his wife and daughter. The family finally reunited in a small Chicago apartment, far from the icy hills of Sweden. America was loud, busy, and full of color. The little Swedish girl who barely spoke English suddenly found herself surrounded by jazz, movie theaters, and flashing neon lights. But Ann-Margret never forgot her roots. She carried her mother's strength, her father's work ethic, and a heart full of dreams. While other children wanted to become teachers or nurses, Ann wanted to dance and sing. She didn't know it yet, but destiny was already writing her name in the stars of Hollywood. In high school, Ann-Margret was shy, but whenever music played, her whole body transformed. Her dance moves were bold, energetic, and wild for that time. After graduation, she joined a small singing group called the Subtle Tones. They performed in small clubs and lounges, often for just a meal or a few dollars. One night, a famous comedian named George Burns saw her perform and was blown away. He invited her to appear in his Las Vegas show in 1960, and from that moment, everything changed. Her fiery red hair, deep voice, and unique style caught everyone's attention. Hollywood producers soon wanted her for films, and in 1961, she signed with 20th Century Fox. Within a year, she was being called the next Marilyn Monroe. But unlike Marilyn, Ann wasn't just beauty, she was pure energy. She could sing, dance, and act with passion that no one had seen before. Her early movies like Bye Bye Birdie and State Fair made her a household name. She was living every girl's dream. Fame, money, and love from millions of fans. Yet behind that glitter, she still felt alone. Fame came fast, but real happiness was still out of reach. That's when Elvis Presley walked into her life, and everything changed forever. It was 1963 when Ann-Margret was cast in Viva Las Vegas, a film that would become legendary not only for its songs and style, but for the real love story that bloomed behind the scenes. Elvis Presley was already the king of rock and roll, adored by millions but trapped by fame. When he met Ann, something clicked instantly. Both were wild, passionate performers who understood the stage and the price of fame. Their chemistry was electric. On screen, they danced, sang, and flirted. Off screen, they laughed, rode motorcycles through the desert, and stayed up late talking about dreams and fears. Ann once said, "He saw the real me, not the image." Their connection went beyond attraction. They were kindred spirits. Elvis called her the female me. But their romance was complicated. Elvis was still tied to his longtime girlfriend, Priscilla, back home in Graceland. He felt torn between loyalty and love. The studio tried to hide their relationship, but the sparks were too bright to ignore. Paparazzi photos, secret meetings, and whispers in Hollywood circles told the world that something deep was happening. For Ann, it was love that felt eternal. But it came with heartbreak she would carry for the rest of her life. As Viva Las Vegas wrapped up, the real-life romance between Ann and Elvis became too powerful to stay secret. They spent nights driving through the desert, just the two of them, escaping cameras and fame. But when Elvis's manager, Colonel Tom Parker, found out, he warned Elvis that a scandal could destroy his image. At the same time, Priscilla waited at Graceland, unaware of how deep this new love had grown. Torn between two women, Elvis had to make a painful decision. In 1964, he ended things with Ann-Margret, telling her it was for both their sakes. Ann was devastated. She later admitted she cried for months, unable to eat or sleep. But even after the breakup, they never truly let go of each other. They spoke on the phone often, sent each other gifts, and shared secret messages through friends. When Elvis married Priscilla in 1967, Ann congratulated him, though her heart shattered. Years later, when Elvis died in 1977, Ann was one of the few people invited to the private funeral. She wept quietly, laying flowers on his coffin. She never spoke publicly about the depth of their love until decades later, when she confessed, "We shared something that the world could never understand." After losing Elvis, Ann-Margret tried to focus on her career, but life kept testing her. In 1972, she suffered a horrific accident while performing in Lake Tahoe. During a stunt, she fell 22 feet from a stage platform, landing face first on the ground. Her face was shattered. Doctors said she might never look the same or act again. She was in a coma for 3 days and had her jaw wired shut for months. Most stars would have given up, but not Ann. With her husband, actor Roger Smith, by her side, she fought her way back. Through pain, tears, and endless surgeries, she learned to smile again. When she finally returned to the screen, fans were amazed, not just by her recovery, but by her courage. She refused to let tragedy define her. In interviews, she often said that her faith and the love of her husband saved her life. Yet even in her happiest moments, there was a quiet sadness in her eyes, a reflection of the love she once shared with Elvis, the man she could never forget. She had moved forward, but part of her heart remained in the past. Roger Smith, her husband of 50 years, was more than just a partner. He was her protector, her best friend, and the reason she survived Hollywood's storms. He gave up his own acting career to manage hers, handling everything from her business to her health. Together, they became one of Hollywood's most loyal couples. In a world where marriages often lasted months, theirs lasted decades. Still, Ann often spoke of Elvis with gentle affection, never bitterness. She called him a soul I will always love. Elvis, too, never truly forgot her. Even during his toughest years, he reportedly kept a photo of her in Graceland. In one of their last phone calls, not long before his death, Elvis told her, "You'll always be my Ann." When Roger passed away in 2017, Ann's world grew quiet again. She kept working in charity, visiting hospitals, and staying away from the spotlight. Friends said she often looked through old photos of her and Elvis, smiling through tears. She had loved 2 men deeply, one who stood by her side till the end, and one who lived forever in her heart. In early 2025, Ann-Margret gave what she called her final interview. Her voice was soft, her face older but still radiant. Sitting in her California home surrounded by photos and memories, she spoke about her life, her success, and her greatest loves. For decades, she had refused to fully open up about her relationship with Elvis, but now, she said, it's time people knew the truth. She revealed that she and Elvis had secretly planned to marry after Viva Las Vegas. They had even looked at houses together and talked about a simple life away from fame. But pressure from his management and fear of losing his fans made Elvis back away. Ann said, "He didn't break my heart. The world did." She shared that even years after they separated, they would still send messages through friends, and he once mailed her a ring engraved with the words, "Eternal Flame." During that final interview, tears filled her eyes as she said, "I never stopped loving him. Part of me is still with him." Her words left the world silent, a confession that confirmed what many had long suspected, that Elvis Presley's greatest love might not have been Priscilla. But Ann-Margret's life has been a story of beauty, loss, and incredible strength. From a poor Swedish girl to an American legend, she has lived through moments that could have destroyed anyone else. Yet she rose again every time, stronger, wiser, and kinder. Her story with Elvis remains one of Hollywood's most mysterious and heartbreaking romances, a reminder that even the brightest stars carry shadows. But Ann never let tragedy define her. Instead, she turned pain into art and love into legacy. Today, she is celebrated not just for her films or awards, but for her courage, humility, and honesty. Her final confession about Elvis wasn't about fame or gossip. It was about truth, the kind that stays pure even after decades. As she said in her last words to the interviewer, "Love doesn't end when people do. It stays, in songs, in memories, in the heart." And that is where Ann-Margret and Elvis Presley will remain. 2 souls forever linked by music, passion, and a love story that the world will never forget. After her emotional 2025 confession, the world looked at Ann-Margret in a new light. She was no longer just the fiery redhead who danced across Hollywood's biggest stages. She was a living symbol of resilience and grace. Unlike many stars who chased attention until their last days, Ann chose peace. She stopped attending award shows and parties, preferring quiet afternoons at home surrounded by memories. Her home was said to be filled with framed photos of her parents, her husband Roger, and yes, of Elvis. Each picture told a story, not of fame, but of moments that truly mattered. Reporters often tried to push her for more secrets, but she always smiled softly and said, "I've said what my heart needed to say." That calmness became her trademark. In a world where so many cling to the spotlight, Ann-Margret walked away with dignity. She taught people that real success isn't about staying famous. It's about staying kind, true, and grateful for every moment. As she grew older, Ann-Margret often reflected on her life with gentle wisdom. In interviews, she never spoke with anger about what she lost, only gratitude for what she had. "Every pain taught me something," she once said. "Every scar, every tear, every heartbreak made me stronger." When asked about Elvis, she didn't speak like a woman mourning lost love. She spoke like someone who had been blessed to experience it. "He was my mirror," she said quietly. "We saw ourselves in each other." She explained that their connection was more than romance. It was a spiritual bond. Both came from humble beginnings. Both carried deep insecurities behind their smiles, and both were shaped by the pressure of fame. Over the years, she learned to turn that pain into compassion. She visited hospitals, performed for veterans, and often wrote letters to fans who said her story gave them hope. She believed that love, even love that doesn't last, can still heal others. Her life became proof that you don't need to erase your past to find peace. You just need to make peace with it. Long after Elvis's passing, people who had known him shared stories that confirmed how deep his love for Ann-Margret had been. Members of his inner circle said that he would sometimes play songs that reminded him of her during late-night sessions at Graceland. When he watched her perform on TV, he would quietly tell those around him, "That's my girl." Even during his marriage to Priscilla, friends noticed that Elvis's eyes softened whenever her name came up. He once told a close friend, "Ann understood me in ways no one else could." After his death, those same friends said Ann never spoke ill of him, not once. She never tried to use his name for fame or money. She protected his memory, keeping their love private and sacred. That loyalty made her different from anyone else in Elvis's life. She carried his secret with honor for nearly 60 years. When she finally opened up in 2025, the world understood why Elvis had called her his eternal flame. Their love had never died. It had only gone quiet, waiting for her final words to bring it back to light. Behind her beautiful smile, Ann-Margret carried unimaginable pain. Her accident in the 1970s had left her physically broken, but emotionally, she refused to surrender. During her recovery, she spent hours learning to speak again, to smile again, and to walk on camera without showing pain. She called it her second life. Her husband Roger stayed beside her through every surgery, feeding her, encouraging her, and telling her she was still beautiful. That loyalty strengthened their bond, but it also reminded Ann of something she had once shared with Elvis: deep devotion. In her later interviews, she said that the love of both men shaped her soul in different ways. One showed her passion, the other taught her peace. Her story became an example for millions of women who had faced loss or hardship. She proved that it's possible to love deeply, suffer greatly, and still find joy again. Ann-Margret never called herself a survivor. She said she was simply someone who refused to stop believing in love. That belief kept her shining long after her youth had faded. Many Hollywood stars lose themselves to fame, money, or ego, but Ann-Margret remained grounded. She treated crew members and fans with kindness and was known for sending handwritten thank you notes to people she worked with. Directors described her as humble,